Why narcissists don't like sick people. Have you ever felt abandoned when you desperately needed support? When crisis hits, most of us rely on family or partners to have our backs. But imagine enduring a shattering diagnosis, grueling treatment, or agonizing recovery alone, even betrayed by those closest expected to provide comfort. This chilling dynamic haunts many abuse survivors dealing with narcissistic loved ones. Their disordered psyche prohibits empathy, leaving victims devastatingly isolated. I invite you to watch further to understand why narcissists inherently lack compassion during suffering, the deep wounds their absence inflicts, and most importantly, pathways to healing regardless. If you have faced grave illness while craving care from emotionally unavailable people, may this discussion provide validation and hope. Even without sympathetic family, building community and self-nurturing skills can transform isolation into resilience. A key hallmark of narcissistic personality disorder entails lacking empathy and genuine concern for others' welfare. While most decent human beings respond to suffering with compassion, narcissists react with dismissal, resentment, or even contempt. Their disordered psyche filters everything exclusively through a lens of how situations affect them rather than normal empathetic processing. Imagine the hurt when vulnerable loved ones not only fail to receive comfort during already traumatic health crises, but face antagonism or indifference instead. Unfortunately, this wounding dynamic commonly plays out when narcissistic individuals are involved. Let's explore deeper why sickness triggers narcissistic injury, how that manifests through callousness, and the resultant isolation survivors endure. Narcissists inherently lack empathy and see sickness as an inconvenience or weakness. So when someone close to them gets ill, they are unable to provide meaningful care or support. This can be devastating for the sick person. For example, some clients shared that when they had major surgery, their narcissistic partner did nothing to help them recover. They had to clean the house and shop for groceries themselves before the surgery. A few days after, they were yelled at for not keeping up with chores, even though they were on crutches. The narcissist lacked any comprehension of the limitations and vulnerabilities a surgical patient faces. Another instance was when one person endured excruciating kidney stones, and their narcissistic wife picked fights during this time, fabricating outrageous stories against them. The sheer contempt and cruelty displayed remains heartbreaking and bewildering. Likewise, a woman recounted that whenever she had childhood colds, her narcissistic father unleashed anger on her mother, irrationally blaming her for the illnesses. Out of guilt, she would suppress her coughing to avoid triggering abuse. Only later did she realize the misplaced blame and lack of concern for her well-being. The central truth is that narcissists view sickness as a threat for several key reasons. Reminder of their own mortality. Narcissists have delusional grandiosity about their strength and immunity to infirmity. Illness represents an inconvenient reminder that they too will age, fall ill, or die, contradicting their exceptionalism complex. For instance, one narcissistic businessman frequently visited elderly people to facilitate a deal. Yet he openly despised being around the smell of death and dying in nursing homes. He seemed oblivious to the hypocrisy of exploiting old people for profit while simultaneously scorning their humanity. Surface insecurity and shame. Any vulnerability exposes narcissists' secret insecurities. Sickness forces them to confront their lack of control over mortal frailty. Rather than respond with compassion, they react with deep shame and anger that the fate of being untouchable is shattered. So when a loved one falls ill, they direct these uncomfortable emotions outward through frustration, belittlement, or manipulation, loss of attention, and inconvenience. To narcissists, anything diverting attention from themselves elicits resentment, including others' grave health situations. Needing to provide care also represents an unwanted inconvenience and disruption to their routine. They begrudge having to make sacrifices or adjustments to accommodate an ill person, even when expected societal norms dictate that graciousness during illness. While they intellectually know the right supportive responses, emotional limitations obstruct actually demonstrating that care. The egocentrism prohibits real empathy. So at best, they feign concern through superficial gestures when witnesses are present. But they quickly revert to irritation or apathy when alone with the sick person again. For instance, one woman invited her narcissistic mother to help after a difficult birth. Her mom sat idly chatting on the phone while the recovering daughter did all caretaking. She even remarked snidely about abandoning the baby to go to a necessary dental appointment. Her interest was only performative for appearances, not genuine support. Another example was a narcissistic parent visiting their child hospitalized and critically ill. When doctors or outsiders were present, she seemed like a model caregiver, oozing saccharine concern, yet privately, she lacking any real care about stabilization or recovery. Her public persona concealed, yet again, the dearth of empathy or compassion when the spotlight moved to her vulnerable child. In effect, dealing with sickness removes narcissists' masks, exposing the ugliness beneath. It dismantles their carefully constructed image as generous, selfless, likable people. Coping with a narcissist becomes exponentially harder when relying on them for caregiving during illness. Not only are they impatient, entitled, and absent, they resent having to confront mortality by proxy through this responsibility. Their discomfort erupts through callous dismissiveness, minimizing severity or outright resentment. For instance, one daughter called her narcissistic parents to share a cancer diagnosis. They immediately scoffed, insisting it couldn't be real since some test results were still pending. Insensitive skepticism and denial substituted the normal concern and counsel expected of parents. Another headache is that upon needing hospitalization, health professionals automatically assume loved ones will provide support during treatment and recovery. Repeatedly asserting there is no such care available from family requires uncomfortable explanations about estrangement from narcissists. It illustrates the deep isolation survivors endure absent the compassion human beings expect through illness. Fundamentally, narcissists cannot comprehend or support experiences beyond their own narrow range, including devastating health crises. The egocentrism qualifying their disordered psyche allows only passing performative empathy when socially required for appearances. They may mouth the right sympathetic phrases, but quickly revert to making it about themselves, or even competing over whose situation seems worse. One person endured their narcissistic friend one-up them by inventing an even more dire health issue to regain central attention on hearing about their diagnosis. While such stunning callousness seems incomprehensible, it reflects narcissists' emotional limits. Fearing their own fragility when confronted by mortality, they instinctively attack rather than comfort illness sufferers. Their psyche punishes rather than protects those requiring care. So survivors often endure terminal conditions heartbreakingly alone, abandoned by the very people society assumes should nurture and support them through such travails. In many ways, grappling with serious illness while dealing with unsympathetic narcissists compounds suffering exponentially. Not only do the physical, emotional, and practical dimensions overwhelm daily functioning already, but the additional lack of empathy piles on unnecessary added stress. Managing mortal uncertainty is terrifying enough without also battling narcissistic family undermining or ignoring the patient struggling to heal. Emotional isolation denies much-needed comfort from attached loved ones, expected to intensify presence and care during times of dire need. While narcissists intellectually understand sickness warrants additional support, emotional limitations obstruct them translating that awareness into meaningful compassion. Their disordered psyche filters everything exclusively through a lens of how any stimulus or situation affects them rather than normal empathic processing focused on alleviating suffering in others. This dysfunctional disconnect between conceptual information and emotional interpretation profoundly handicaps narcissists from behaving supportively when loved ones need them most. Whether undergoing surgery, enduring lengthy treatments, or debilitating progressive diseases, emotional and often physical isolation results when narcissistic individuals are involved and counted upon. Their emptied insides simply harbor no meaningful sensory of empathy to respond helpfully when intense medical trauma hijacks their loved ones' lives. All energy remains locked into centripetal black holes, comprising their disabling pathology. Try imagining expecting compassion from a colorblind person regarding distinguishing green and red, or asking a deaf individual to relay what a violin sounds like. It is outside their experiential scope. No matter the level words attempting to describe the sentiment or stimuli, without directly perceiving those sensations personally, any recounting remains vacantly academic rather than meaningfully relevant to them. This metaphorically approximates the impenetrable empathy void, distinguishing narcissistic minds from those capable of emotionally identifying with another's poignant struggles. While convenient to blame narcissists for lack of care, frankly, they operate within unfortunately disability-imposed constraints. Growth opportunity exists for survivors to accept what narcissists can't reliably provide, turning attention instead to shoring up other resources offering sustenance during pivotal times. Resilience strengthens when we construct supportive communities capable of filling emotional needs. Healing happens when we build self-nurturing capacities independent of dysfunctional parenting dynamics, abstaining due to disorder-rooted limitations. And recovery becomes possible when we take proactive control of seeking solutions aligned with reality rather than dwelling resentfully on people's inabilities to show up for us the way we may still yearn despite their mental health challenges. In closing, narrow delusions that emotional support will somehow emerge when it really counts, such as serious illness, often lead abuse survivors to repeatedly misplace hope in narcissistic individuals. But taking responsibility for securing our own care without resentment frees energy presently wasted anticipating caregivers can somehow metamorphose into compassionate heroes against ingrained constraints of their pathology. This liberating mindset shift focuses solutions under personal agency rather than misdirected efforts trying to change other people not wired for empathy. Aspiring for narcissists to caretake emotional needs, however legitimate those unmet longings, will only lead to further pain when expectations collide repeatedly with their health condition-imposed limitations. May we direct nurturing intentions towards emotionally available individuals, willing to reciprocate support, offer compassion matching our own willingness, and accompany during passages none should endure alone. Seeking support can help make meaning from suffering. There are compassionate people willing to listen without judgment and empower rather than diminish you. You have survived, which takes profound strength. Give yourself credit for that resilience. And know that you can build an even more positive future, one step at a time. Focus on self-care right now. Do things that make you feel safe, respected, and loved. You are allowed to set boundaries and have needs. Forgive yourself for any self-blame while also acknowledging room for personal growth. Know that with compassion for yourself and others, we can build a society with less abuse, not more recrimination. You have a voice to share lessons and advocate change. No matter what anyone did to you, your spirit and humanity remain whole. You deserve support. You deserve joy. You deserve to believe in yourself. This is the foundation, and from here, the journey, while not always easy, can move towards greater healing. I hope this video brought some insight or comfort. If you would like to see more content like this, I kindly invite you to subscribe. Your support helps me continue creating resources for healing. I also welcome any feedback or suggestions for future topics. My aim is to foster an empowering community. Again, thank you so much for watching. I wish you continued strength and peace on your journey. Please know that you deserve compassion, and there are always brighter days ahead, even if they remain difficult to see in this moment. Take good care.